Hello, everyone, and welcome to STOked, the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Whoa, J-Man, you sound a little sleepy.
I am. I was up until about 3 o'clock in the morning this morning reading through the character bios that people sent us, man.
I thought maybe you were going to say playing Stowe.
No, I wish.
I'd rather be playing Stowe could be your new bumper sticker. So you went, okay, well, why don't we save all the bio stuff for the community feedback
I
section
got a lot
of the
to
show.
say about it.
Okay.
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff.
We've probably been sitting in this studio for 2 hours now going through all these bios, just like the great ones that we've picked. So we got a ton, so stay tuned for that. And then also, we've had some Stowe news that we thought we'd share with you guys.
For a change.
The engineering reports are out. We haven't seen one of these for a little while.
That's right.
This one had a long preamble.
To really summarize, basically, it's more of a focus on quality than quantity at this point.
Aside from the focus on polish and fixes, there was also a couple other interesting new additions they'll be doing. One that kind of got you kind of worked up is...
Yeah, because this is just stupid.
I know, it kind of is.
Okay, one of the things that listed on the engineering reports is a series of new ships that are coming, most of which are really cool.
Yeah, like Rear Admirals next week, by the week this episode comes out, the new Excelsior is going to be in there.
Yeah, cool.
It's cool.
Cool. I'm all for that. The Gorn ships, the Nausicaan ships.
Yeah.
I'm going to fly a Nausicaan ship. I think those things are badass looking.
Yeah.
But the big one that just stuck out to me, like a 3,000 meter wide sore thumb, is the Enterprise J is on that list of ships coming. What? Why?
Maybe there's a story reason.
How can you invent a story reason for... Okay, I could maybe see the Enterprise J coming back and flying around and being an NPC ship. But when they release it on the C-Store, we're going to have hundreds of Js, just like the Galaxy X's were.
The Galaxy X absolutely fits, but the Enterprise J, unless there is a good episodic content tie-in that somehow is responsible for bringing the technology of the Enterprise J...
I don't buy it.
Okay, well, what if some sort of episodic content brings up some sort of reason that we need the Enterprise J to combat the Iconians or something?
And all of a sudden we have technology from the 27th century?
I know, it's weak. I don't like it. I'm just trying to come up with some acceptable reason. I can't think of one where it would fit to put that in there.
The size. I mean, it's huge. I think it's like 3,100 meters across. And we were looking at the Galaxy earlier. It's like... What was it, 200 and something long?
Yeah. Lengthwise, it was like
270 or so meters long versus 3,000 meters wide.
And the Enterprise E, isn't that supposed to be like 300 or 400 meters long? It's bigger than by the Galaxy, but the J, I mean, if you're getting into the 3,000 meter, I can't imagine the scale working very well.
Plus, so either they're going to have to break the soft cannon that exists around the ship and make it smaller.
It's not soft cannon, really. I mean, it was featured in Enterprise,
right? And now you could argue that it was an alternative universe or an alternative future, but really,
okay, you could, yeah.
Any way you cut it, it's not going to be the J, or it's going to be the J and be dumb. So why do it? It's just, it looks worse than the Jupiter Dreadnought. And everybody hates that space
I like the Jupiter
whale.
Dreadnought.
No, you don't.
No.
You're retarded if you like that ship.
I like that it's got the name Jupiter.
I do that, yeah.
Okay.
End rant.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Maybe, let's just cap it off that unless there's some really good canon reason to have it in there, then it does seem out of place, and I worry about, at that point, why are we playing a Star Trek game?
I can't buy a canon reason for it either. I'm a negative Nancy.
I actually really didn't like it when Enterprise did it.
I didn't either.
Yeah, okay.
I thought the whole temporal Cold War thing was kind of dumb.
Well, I thought they could have made it cooler.
You know what? It's time for another rant. The whole temporal thing.
It was a total piddle out. It was a total piddle out.
Not only that, but they painted themselves into a corner. You can never have another Prime Universe thing after Voyager, because at that point you're getting too deeply into time mechanics. If you're
talking about like the year of hell and stuff like that.
Yeah, or the one where the time ship kidnaps 7 of 9 to rescue.
Oh yeah, and she can only transport so many times while she dies.
There was just so much temporal mechanic crap going on that. Yeah, even the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It involved time travel in the finale too.
All right, paint yourselves into a story corner at that point.
So we'll see what we get. All right, let's move on to something that is actually kind of cool. There's always been a lot of people in the forum community who are extremely helpful, but now it sounds like Cryptic might be somehow officializing more so their positions.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
In the tech support forum over on Cryptic's official forums at StarTrekOnline.com.
What?
They have forums.
Oh my. Why are we even doing this show? You just go to the forums.
There's a large group of people that have made the tech support forums their home, and they see it as their duty to help out the community with tech issues. And
cool.
So Stormshade, the community manager, has come across and said, I'm going to be handpicking a bunch of you guys that have shown yourselves, have proven yourselves to be helpful players. You're going to get a special title on the forums, And you're going to get your own chat channel.
That's cool.
In game.
Chat channel in game to help for like people to get help from, or for
so
them
they can talk to each other. So like, hey, I've got this guy who's asking me about this issue. Do you guys have any ideas? I guess that's
so. How do you become a special helper in the forum?
Just be helpful and hope that somebody notices.
And there's something you have to turn on in your profile too to
yeah,
volunteer,
it's optional.
Right?
If you get tagged to be part of this, you don't necessarily have to accept the responsibility.
So somehow you'll be notified, or somehow you get tagged, and then you turn that on.
Your account settings on the forum.
But there's supposed to be no hard feelings if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Advisory council.
I know.
I had a little advisory council stuck in my throat.
I know.
No, it's cool. It's not. The advisory council was more about taking ideas and a lot less about support. And I think this is a much better way to go.
It's kind of what we do with our community feedback
it totally
right now.
Is. Well, and our email inboxes and the forums. And,
yeah.
But I think this is a good way to encourage it.
I do find it a little ironic that the forums seem to be so thumbs up about this idea when the advisory council was so thumbs down.
I think though this is going to have a more positive impact. That means that there's going to be somebody who's almost always available, and it doesn't require Cryptic to always be paying them.
I see this from two different sides. One is that it's cool to encourage the community to interact with each other. That's always cool. But I worry that this is such a hand-picked. It is handpicked. You can't say, "Hey, I'd like to be involved with this. How do I become a member?" It's basically.
Well, that'd be like saying I could go to our forums and I could handpick people because I'm in there all the time, and I know
we're
who's
already
contributing.
A private organization attached to this game and others, but Cryptic is the developer of the title, and that was one of the major arguments against the council was that they don't like a handpicked.
I'll tell you why, and this happened to Ustream, who we're streaming live on right now. Hey, Ustream. The main issue is that Ustream did the same thing where they brought in community support to help scale their support infrastructure, and then some of them did naughty bad things. And Ustream got in trouble for some stuff because somebody thought it was a Ustream representative. So I can see maybe the hand picking's more about some of that angle too, where you want to make sure that since they are semi-representing the company in a way, and sometimes users don't realize they're not representing the company, you do want to make sure they're not going to be somebody that embarrasses you.
Yeah. I guess in the end I can see the benefits and downsides, but I think there are more benefits than downsides.
Yeah.
So that's probably my summary.
And we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah.
It could be a big ball of fail. It could be something that turns out awesome.
And you know what? If any of you have ended up being nominated for this honor and be a part of this group, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us, you can let us know about that.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, there's been a new hire at Cryptic, and it's actually one that's kind of exciting.
I'm really excited.
They're going to be working on the Star Trek Online team. We should make that disclaimer.
Yeah.
Because we don't actually monitor all employees in and out of Cryptic.
No.
Well, actually, you do have some camera set up down there. So you are pretty in on the loop.
I wouldn't say all of them. No.
I mean,
some of them use the back entrance.
We've got a feed on our iPad right now of Cryptic Studios, so we can see. Oh, hey, look at this. Jesse, what's his last name?
Heinig.
He's not actually in the office right now.
No, but Stahl's working on the weekend.
Oh, look at him go. So Jesse Heinig's been hired as a new game designer, and he's got some pretty impressive credentials.
The number one that I think a lot of people are excited about is that he worked on Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, which are fan favorites. I mean, Fallout 3 was a big bestseller.
Oh, huge.
But Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 started the franchise. And anybody that's been a gamer for a long time has likely played it, especially if you're a fan of RPGs.
Yeah, well, we've talked about Fallout a lot on Lotso, Legend of the Stoned Owl. It's one of the co-hosts on there, Justin. It's like one of his favorite games. So if you want to hear some Fallout discussion, tune into Lotso.
But another thing that he's really well known for, this Jesse Heinig guy, is he was the lead creator behind the Star Trek RPG system made by the Decipher company.
Which you were saying is a lot of people consider to be a very popular one. It's not one I've ever played.
Now, it's a pen and paper system, but everybody that I've heard mention this system says that it is hands down the best rule system created for the Star Trek universe.
And what's a good rule for MMOs?
If it works on paper, it can work in the game.
Yeah. He's also spent some time at Activision working with
he was
Call
a
of Duty.
production coordinator.
Production coordinator. That's not bad.
So he's got some serious development chops, and I'm looking forward to...
Yeah, I'd love to talk to him sometime. So, Jesse, if you'd ever feel like coming on the show, you are always welcome. Now, there is also a couple other things coming up. I think we mentioned the Excelsior. Did we mention that coming out the week this episode comes out should be the first weekly content?
Oh, right. I think it's called Cold Call. It's the first of the Breen missions.
So you can head over to StarTrekOnline.com/calendar, I think it is, and you can, we'll put a link in the show notes. You can see, when that stuff's coming out.
It should be before our next episode.
So I think next episode in 49 of Stoked, we should have our thoughts on that, which would be cool. And I think we'll probably also be rocking that new Excelsior, which should come out this week.
Probably.
So that should be cool. All right.
How can you not fly that ship?
You got to check it out. Right?
Yeah.
All right. With all of the news covered, let's get mathed.
Torpedoes away! Some of you might recall in episode 32, I gave you a rundown of the pros and cons of each different type of energy weapon. Well, I'd intended at the same time to talk a little bit about projectile weapons, but the segment ended up getting way too long. I've been getting more and more requests lately to release that information though, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I mean, who am I to say no to the people that watch this crap I put on the internet, right? Now, the other thing you might remember about episode 32 is remember how I talked about the efficiency of those high-cost energy types? Well, the same math will apply to projectile weapons, skewing heavily in favor of getting a bigger bang for your buck on quantums and photons. So, keep that in mind as I discuss the individual benefits of each. Before I get into that, though, I want to give another callback to a previous episode of STOked. You see, a long time ago in a podcast far, far away, back in Season 2, Episode 2, which was also known as Episode 21, I gave an overview of how torpedoes work, including how the damage is calculated based on the skill bonuses in-game. It's really interesting stuff to help you understand more about your weapon skills and investing and sticking to a uniform damage type, so go watch it. I'll wait. Okay, now that junk's out of the way, let's get back to talking about things that explode, alright? Starting at the low end of the skills you can invest in is photons. Now, these are going to be considered the baseline and compared to every other type of torpedo that I will talk about in this segment. So just consider that these are the normal torpedo. However, there is one thing to keep in mind is that photons are the fastest recharging projectile weapon in the game. In fact, this makes them an excellent choice if the special abilities of the other damage types available don't really tickle your fancy. The fast recharge means you'll be able to launch a lot of these suckers. This is also especially handy if you find yourself being the type of person that fires off your torpedoes every single time they refresh. Now, quantums, in the same tier as photons, have a slower recharge at 8.5 seconds, but they deal approximately 110% of the damage dealt by a photon torpedo, which is also, coincidentally, the hardest hit per torpedo available other than a tri-cobalt, which I'll mention later on. Quantums also have the fastest travel speed of every torpedo in the game. This makes them very good for long-range attacks. The travel speed makes it slightly more likely that you will impact the shield quadrant you're aiming for, even if your target is a good distance away from you. However, the higher damage of quantum still doesn't make up for the slower recharge if you are, again, the type that launches your torpedoes every time they recharge. Now, moving up to the next tier of weapon types, this is where you'll find plasma, a personal favorite of mine. However, there are some significant drawbacks to using this. Plasma torpedoes have a slower recharge of 8.5 seconds. They also only deal about 75% of an equivalent photon torpedo's damage. However, what they lack in initial punch, they try to make up for with two major things. First of all is a 1/3 chance to proc a dot that applies directly to the hull of an enemy. This means it's not affected by shield bleed-through rates or anything of that nature. The other special property of plasma is that when you use a high-yield torpedo ability, it doesn't just launch multiple torpedoes. Instead, what it does is transfer those into one single massive, slow-moving target that deals a massive amount of damage when it impacts the enemy. It seems to have a very high bleed-through rate, and these high-yield plasma torpedoes always deal the fire damage to your enemy's hull. However, because they are so slow moving and they are targetable, they can be shot down before they reach the enemy. On the same tier as plasma is Transphasic Torpedoes. Now, these have an even slower recharge time at a massive 10.5 seconds, and only deal approximately 70% of the damage an equivalent photon would. Aha, but they do have a trick up their sleeve. 20% of the damage from Transphasic Torpedoes are applied directly to the hull of an enemy. This is as opposed to the standard 10% that applies to most other bleed-through rates for other torpedoes. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that sounds really cool. That means twice the damage on the enemy's hull. Well, not always. You see, that bonus, if you could call it a bonus, only applies when the enemy shields are active. Otherwise, the bonus does nothing, and the overall damage of this torpedo type is relatively weak. Here's some quick math to give you an idea. 10% of 1,000 damage, let's say, that a photon might deal, would be 100 damage. Now, 20% of an equivalent transphasic would be 20% of 700, which would equal 140 damage, which sounds cool, but remember that most people wait to launch their torpedoes until the enemy shields are down, at which point the photon will be dealing dealing 1,000, and the Transphasic will be dealing 700. Does that make it more clear? In a nutshell, what I mean to say here is that Transphasics are not very good. And on we come to the final tier of damage types. This is populated by the Chronotons. Neat name, and I gotta admit, before we get into the stats of the Chronotons, these are gorgeous. They're like little balls of rainbows that explode like fireworks. How can you go wrong with that? Well, the slow recharge is one way you can go wrong. It takes a full 10.5 seconds to recharge a Chronoton torpedo, same as a Transphasic. These deal slightly more damage than a Transphasic, however, at 85% of photon damage. And the little trick they've got up their sleeve is that they have a 1/3 chance to severely hinder the movement and or turning rates of your enemies. On its own, probably isn't all that handy, to be perfectly honest. However, when you combine it with certain stationary hazards like warp plasma, Tychon's Rift, or minefields of other types, you could really give the enemy a bad day. These also seem to be very popular with PvPers, I know, because I am always seeming to get hit with them whenever I try to run away from somebody. I just want to leave. Why won't you let me leave? And last, but certainly not least, of all the torpedo damage types is the mother of all torpedoes, the Mega, the Monster, Tri-Cobalt. Note that these are only available at Mark 10 or above. They are extremely slow to recharge. I believe it's at least 30 seconds, could be 60. I wasn't watching it too closely because I was just waiting for the moment that they recharge. I very rarely use these because of the incredibly slow recharge. You'll be lucky to get more than one of these off during a single engagement. And when I say lucky, I mean lucky, because these things deal 250% of the base photon damage in about a 2.0 kilometer area. Boom! They also disable your opponents for just a few seconds. It knocks all of their systems offline, or has a chance to anyway. Now, the downside of Tri-Cobalt is that there is no normal attack mode. They always summon a high yield type torpedo, which, just like the plasma high yield, can be shot down while it's incoming. It actually also travels even slower than the high yield plasma. And while big numbers are a whole lot of fun, I will not deny that, you really can't compete with photon DPS with this sucker, because in order to be on par with a baseline photon, the cooldown would have to be less than 20 seconds. Obviously it's not, which really results this being nothing more than a fun toy. Not really useful. And that brings us to the end of your options for different types of weapons. Now, I know that I've been talking primarily, almost exclusively, about torpedoes, in fact. There are also, obviously, mines for each of these different types. I'm not a big fan of mines. I'm just going to come right out and say that, so I don't do a lot of research on this topic. If you really love mines, I would love to hear your feedback. Send it over to Jeremy at jupiterbroadcasting.com, or if you have any other comments on this math segment. Really, anything. If you like the way my hair looked today, even though you can't see it, because we're doing things a little bit different. Now, I'm going to go ahead and restate the opinion that I've held since, well, forever, I think, in that quantums and photons will always give your ship captain the biggest bang, literally in this case, for his skill buck. And while each other projectile type has unique benefits that some players might find worthwhile, I'll forever be in support of the basics, because after all, it's their job to blow the other guy up in the most efficient way possible, right? So let's not screw around with shield penetration and hindering movement. Let's just get the job done. Boom! And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you just got mathed.
I feel like I'm just slaughtering people.
Very common.
Goes with it. Who suggests that at a certain point, and probably not immediately,
Right. I'm on the ground. They would be very short. Yeah, I think that's important.
And welcome to the community feedback section of Stoked. Last episode, we asked you guys to send us your character bios.
We got a massive number of submissions from you guys.
Let's just say it's in the ballpark of like 9,000 different submissions.
I think it was way over 9,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Because of that massive amount, we're going to only feature about 3 of them in this episode, and the next episode we'll feature another batch.
Because quite honestly, we didn't even get through them all.
And you know what's kind of cool is, I don't want to forget this, next episode will be our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, right.
So we've got something really special planned for that, and we'll also feature another batch, but we'll be cross-posting all of these over at jupitercolony.com, and I want to encourage you, because we've only gotten through some of them that we've received, and we're only featuring a couple of them. You can spotlight them for yourself over at the colony.
Just go and post your own bio over there at jupitercolony.com and let others comment on it yourselves.
Yeah, and I think that'd be really cool. All right. Now, there was a couple of funny things we wanted to point out before we get into the specifics that we'll be highlighting.
I think anytime you get a large group of people together, a lot of them tend to have some of the same ideas.
And it's kind of fun when you can identify those things. See what the hive is thinking.
Yeah.
All right, what do we get?
Even if it also means that most of us are just complete unoriginal assholes.
And we're totally guilty of some of these, too. We'll tell you up front.
The first one is me. Right off the bat. Every Vulcan is broken.
Oh, tell me about this.
Every Vulcan has emotions for some reason or just is broken.
I'm going to say this, though. That's canon.
That's true, isn't it?
Like T'Pol, even Spock.
He was half human.
You were saying a lot of the characters like didn't go through Kolinahr, so they still had some traces.
Right.
Or they had their emotion center damaged.
Or they had a mind meld gone wrong. Or,
or
like a physical problem.
Now, a lot of people... And
I have a Vulcan myself who I made half Romulan.
Yeah.
So that I could get away with
it. Oh, and half Romulan. Yeah.
She's got the tattoo on her face and everything like that. So
right, because she's been scorned. Right. The planet got blowed up.
But she didn't shave her head.
Oh, because she wants to be beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. Vulcans care about their beauty when their emotions are damaged. Now, there was... People were guilty of this, and I surely am, and that is integrating a famous character or being like an adjunct of a famous character. Now,
like Descendants of Kirk. Which, honestly, should be everywhere.
And we got a couple of cool Descendants from
With how
Kirk
much he got it on?
Yeah, that's true. That could be canon, too. Now, of course, my main character is Captain Pike, and I worked
one and only.
I worked into my bio a reason for that. But it seems like a lot of other people have that same inspiration. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have a piece of the Star Trek lore in their character.
I do want to give a shout out. I wish I remembered your character name, but there was one that specifically called you out on it and said basically, if Chris can do it with Pike, then I can do it with Kirk.
Yeah.
And so... yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. All right, now there was also we noticed when people were Trills, there was some commonalities with Trills too.
Well, basically everybody that's a joined Trill got it from an accident. Not everyone. Yeah. There are exceptions to every one of these rules. But
there was some that were Dax Trill that got it from an injury, but you said there was also somebody wrote in with a Dax Trill story where they just...
I would say that last night I probably read through at least 4 or 5 different stories where somebody was in an accident or a ship was attacked, and the joined Trill had to be put in the nearest Trill just to save the symbiote's life. It just happened to be them, that they hadn't gone through the joining...
because that's kind of like the Star Trek character fantasy.
That's how Ezri ended up with Dax, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can take it right out of there. All right. So that's kind of some of the fun commonalities that we noticed. But did you want to talk about the first one that you liked?
Yeah. The first one I want to give a shout out to is Azure Alliance, and not specifically for the bio he sent us, though.
Oh.
But
that kind of seems like that's not the rule. Okay.
But here's why.
Kidding.
The bio itself is pretty simplistic. He's a human, had a pretty normal life, joined Starfleet, et cetera, et cetera. I give a special shout out to this guy because he has been doing an ongoing captain's log in the in-game interface.
Yeah, he's been doing the blog thing, the captain's blog.
Since the game launched, he's had the same character, and he's been doing... And you know what? This guy is an incredible writer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Some of the scenes that he has written in his captain's log are really poignant, really actually emotionally believable, and he's done very recently the Undine invasion of the Pelia sector in like a frontline war soldier
really?
And it's really dramatic. It's actually really good writing.
Interesting.
I wish I had a really easy way to post it because it's all integrated to his mission log and everything, so it's kind of hard to find.
We'll post this in the colony. Maybe if he could leave a reply in the colony with a link.
I would love
to
if he would repost it for us if he's got it all set up. And
that is cool.
You know, on a similar note, there's this guy named Daniel Carver is his character's name. Now, again, his in-game bio is kind of so-so.
Yeah.
Pretty normal, but the special shout-out goes because he's had an actual blog set up doing...
So he's kind of doing the same thing that Azure Alliance is doing, but he's doing it on like a more formal blog website.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Now, his character is a doctor who just happened to get caught up in this whole thing. So like every blog post is this real internal struggle between the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm and being the frontline commander in a war situation.
That's interesting.
And it's actually, again, very
well written. That sounds like a good Star Trek drama.
It does.
Yeah. I'm one that I probably wouldn't enjoy, though, because it'd be too dramatic.
It'd be like Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, well, unless it really focused on the hero. You know, and which is what I'm sure his blog does, so I'm sure that would be entertaining.
But he does also have complete crew manifests, and he's even done like a ship layout and stuff for
people really get in it. Now, our buddy Richter Scale, who was featured in a previous community feedback segment, wrote in And
I found his especially interesting. He's a lifetimer, so he's got a liberated Borg as his main captain.
That's what I'm doing too.
The story behind it is that his character was originally set up, born within the collective, to be a queen designate.
So he's a Borg baby.
Right. Their ship blew up, and there were only 2 survivors, which was this character and their first officer, also a Borg.
Now, that does kind of, the last survivor kind of element that we said might lose you some points.
But it's the Borg, so there's millions of them out there, billions.
But he's the last survivor of a ship.
Possibly.
All right. But still, that even with that under consideration, I'm still digging the rest of this.
They were rescued from the wreckage by Starfleet and liberated, these 2 Borg. They ended up, because they're still Borg and still have some connection with each other, they ended up falling in love, getting married. It's cute. The really cool part I find about this bio, though, is the last part that he said he did not include in-game, but only emailed to us.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I was like, whoa. That's a game changer.
It really just paints the Borg in a completely new light, because this whole statement was basically that the Borg see it as their destiny to unify the galaxy, to combat a major threat that will be returning at some point.
And he painted it in a light that the Borg consider it like an urgent priority, and that the fact that the Federation is battling them is slowing them down, because the only way to protect from this ancient enemy is by assimilating everyone to use them as resources.
By unifying the galaxy.
Right.
They see
for one affront.
Is the most efficient manner to so basically the Borg see the end justifies their means.
Yeah, they feel like their urgent need is to coordinate everybody and attack. And that's an interesting way to paint them, and then it makes you wonder, are they really maybe the ultimate good guy?
Maybe.
That's weird.
Like just taken to the extreme too far.
And it's fun to have a bio that makes you go, oh, that's an interesting thought. And that's Richter Scale's bio really triggered that in both of us, so we wanted to feature that one.
Yep.
All right. Now, that doesn't seem like actually all that much, but those are really good ones. And
that's probably out of, I can't even count how many bios we read, and those were among the best of them. But we've still got tons more to read.
So many creative ideas, too. So I do really encourage you to go to the show notes. We'll have links to the colony in there. And if yours isn't in there, we really do encourage you to post them. It's just actually become we don't have enough resources to post all of those.
Yeah.
But we do encourage you to cross-post them yourselves. And
we barely have enough resources to read all of them.
Yeah. Made this guy stay up till 3 a.m. All right, well, I did mention it earlier, but next week, next Tuesday, will be the 1-year anniversary of STOked. And we've got something really awesome planned for you guys, as well as getting to the next batch of mail and also the news that'll come out. So, and you know what? By then, we've gotten our hands on that new weekly episode.
Yeah, so we'll give you our impressions of that.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, we hope you join us for that episode of STOked. That'll be next Tuesday over at JupiterBroadcasting.com. And until then, have a great Stow week.